Today's episode is a treat for anyone who loves a bold mix of color, pattern, and personality in their home. My guest is Jamie Meares, founder of Furbish Studio, a design destination that has been setting the tone for unapologetically fun, fearless decor. Jamie is known for her eye that blends a little bit of that southern charm with global influence, never shying away from a punch of color or a maximalist moment. Through Furbish, she has curated a collection that feels fresh and modern, but still has that wink to tradition. In today's conversation, we talk all about her journey, her take on decorating, and how we can all infuse a little more originality into our homes and lives. Enjoy! Welcome to Grandma's Silver, where tradition meets today. I'm Allie, your host of the Grandma Silver podcast and founder of the Grand Millennial Lifestyle. Here, we blend aesthetics with nostalgia, engaging in conversations with lifestyle brands, designers, and more to rediscover the timeless charm of the past. Join me as we journey from home to heart, illuminating the past and polishing the present with the gleam of Grandma Silver. All right. Well, Jamie, thanks for joining me. I'm excited to chat today. I have lots of questions, and I'm so excited as a longtime follower of your brand to hear more about the behind the scenes and how it really came to fruition. So, could we start there? Could we talk a little bit about who you are, but also how this all came to be?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I'm Jamie Meares. I'm the founder of Furbish, and Furbish is a home furnishings brand. We've been in business for about 15 years now. We're based out of Raleigh, North Carolina, where I spend most of my time. And it's funny, I always tell the story of this brand as me being one of the original bloggers and one of the first generations of people that had the internet at work. And when I tell that story now, I feel so crazy and old. I mean, there was like a good 10 years where people were like, yeah, I get it. But now when I tell that story, I think people are like, okay, you had the internet. Good for you. You were blogging. But it really is a business and a passion that was born out of I discovered blogging in, the early 2000s. And when I graduated from college, I had a job at an advertising agency and I sat at a desk behind a computer. We really were the first like generation of college grads that in your downtime, instead of going to talk to your coworkers or hanging out or whatever, I was just like surfing the internet on like celebrity gossip sites. And so, I mean, we had this whole world open to us. And I've always been kind of a computer nerd when I was young. My parents bought me a computer early, and I learned how to build websites early. And I was just always like immersed in my computer, like shut my door. My parents didn't see me. Really into just my like world online and, working there, sitting at the desk all day with a lot of downtime, reading blogs. I thought, okay, I'm going to start one. I love this idea of kind of journaling and archiving and recording and capturing what I'm doing in my life. I was definitely a creative. It wasn't like narrowly focused in one lane.
Mhm.
It was always kind of like messing around with our house or cooking or traveling. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna try sharing this. It was very early on before blogs could really be monetized. And there were just a few out there, like some mommy blogs. And so I started sharing. No one was reading, no one was listening. I just kept at it every day. Eventually there's like a comment or two comments. And I was like, okay, we're on to something. And long story short, I was a huge fan of Domino magazine. And when Domino magazine closed, somehow the New York Times got in touch with me. Then they interviewed me. And the headline of the article was like the world's saddest girl because Domino is closed. And it was more overall about like the end of the glossy magazine era and kind of what that meant. And as a blogger, like how did our sharing of photos and all that contribute to glossy magazines fall and whatnot. It was a great article, but it featured my blog on the front page of the style section. And so overnight, I my readership spiked. I got a lot of other press and mentions, and it just had a community really start to bloom in this like decorating DIY lifestyle sharing world of blogging. I kept it that just sharing things I thought were cool. From my perspective, it was easy for me to be authentic. I'm a creative writing major, so I was able to like quickly find my voice on the blog, and I blogged like I talked, and so people felt like they were, able to talk to me and they could hear me. And I think I found I had a sweet spot there. When the recession in 2008 happened, I was unexpectedly laid off. And I knew that it was time to figure out how to monetize this community following. I had put so much time into it, and I knew that it was my passion, and I wanted to figure out how to make it my job. Back then, to really make money and to support yourself with blogging, we didn't have affiliate links. We barely had banner ads. We didn't have sponsored posts. So you really kind of had to sell a product. You could either, create a brand or try to find someone else's product to sell. And it was right at that breaking point where a lot of influencers went the I'm going to be an influencer route or I'm going to start a brand. And I definitely went the I'm going to start a brand. I'm going to make the products. I'm going to create the world for you to step into. I started Furbish and I started with a brick and mortar store. And the goal really was like, can I make my blog into a real place? Can you step into my blog? All the things I had been sharing that inspired me, like flamingo wallpaper or pink sofas. This was so early on. I felt like most people in small towns still hadn't really seen that stuff in person. They had just seen it on the internet. So I was like, well, I'm going to have a pink sofa and I'm going to have flamingo wallpaper, and you can come in and you can see it and touch it and feel it. Started with a tiny bit of money, like $10,000. My mom helped me paint some furniture. My grandma made some bird Christmas ornaments. I mean, it was just scrappy DIY stuff that I had my eye on. And we opened right before Christmas in Raleigh. It worked. These people that had been part of my community for a couple of years, they came. It was not only, local spot that people loved, but it became a destination spot. It was people kind of traveling would come through and stop in there. And there just weren't a lot of stores like that back then that weren't corporate and expensive furniture. It was affordable and it was different. I was able to blog alongside running the store, which fed the PR and fed the advertising. And so it was a nice like synthesis that came together for several years. That's how we started.
That's awesome. Well, I have a couple questions that stem off of this. The first is, what about home decor? Was that the focus of because I know you talked about it being kind of a pseudo journal, like updates on your everyday life, including home decor. Like what made you decide to segue into that specifically as a brick and mortar?
I would say it was always aesthetic. It was never like cooking based because I liked recipes or, it was based on like, can I take a picture of it, make it pretty? Can I share it? I mean, it was always sort of based at like, does it look good? I've always been an aesthetic. If I was sharing art or sharing clothing finds or sharing home decor, it was always like visual. My writing was like very short. I had a voice, but you didn't go on there to read. It wasn't one of those where I was writing essays. You were going to look at the photos because I curated things. I think I had a good eye for the aesthetics of it. I did like home decor a lot, like as part of being someone who always is noticing and looking around and is very like influenced by my surroundings. I can't help but be interested in home design. And so when I started Furbish, I mean, I was probably 95% home decor and accents. I think we sold linen sprays and maybe a few bath and body products, but I've always been really influenced by my surroundings. My mom definitely had a knack for decorating. She was always moving stuff around, going to Pier 1 to buy me like a new bedroom suite of wicker and that whole thing. Like a new comforter and the matching shams would happen like every fall. And so I definitely got it from her. but I think, I was just naturally drawn to my surroundings and how they look.
Was the name of your blog Furbish and then you translated that to a physical space, or did you redevelop that?
The name of my blog was I Swanee, and I Swanee is a very Southern saying that the women in my family used all the time. It basically means like I can't believe that, or I've never, or that's wild. And so you could say like anything to my mom or my grandmother or my aunt and basically get them to say I Swanee. Like it's snowing. I'm pregnant, the casserole is burned, so and so wasn't in church, like whatever it was. And they're like, well, I Swanee? It kind of just meant something was remarkable. Like it
Yeah.
was, they would say it was remarkable. But I didn't think that would work for a store. So we went with Furbish because in the beginning, as I mentioned, my mom and I refurbished some furniture. I'd like to think this was before like painting furniture was like cottagey and like I'd like to think we did it cool, but we probably didn't. We were doing the same thing everybody else was doing. But we were, taking a lot of old pieces because that's what we could afford. I didn't know how to set up like a vendor account with a furniture showroom and carry real furniture. So we were refurbishing. I was reupholstering old pieces and I was painting old pieces, and that's how I got my inventory. So it just seemed natural.
Let's talk a little bit about the journey, I guess, or like the transition from maybe that early storefront to where you are now. I
Sure.
mean, your brand is huge.
Well, it has been a long journey. There's been many stops on the journey, points where I thought I was not going to do it anymore, that I didn't have it in me, points that I thought it was huge and we were ready to sell, points where I had my ego checked and we weren't. I remember in 2020, in January, I went to a birthday party of a friend who also had a very big blog and a huge brand, much bigger than mine. And I respected her a lot. And there were a lot of female founders there of other brands that I respected and considered to be much bigger and reputable than Furbish. And they all kept telling me this like 15-year rule. They're like, you got to do it for 15 years. And I was like, well, shit, that is so many years. I was, I
A
was
long time.
yeah, I was like at 10 and like mad I hadn't made it yet. And I remember that so clearly. And I'm at 15 now, and I do feel a difference. The journey started with the brick and mortar. I had a lot of people caution me and say, why don't you start slow? Get a booth at the flea market. Just sell some stuff on Etsy. And I just absolutely didn't want to do that. My personality is if I'm going to do it, like, let's do it. Let's put all the cards on the table. Like, let's go all in. Brick and mortar's hard and weird and lonely. And, I sat in that little store for years by myself, and now I like don't know how to talk to people anymore because I talk to so many people. But I would say, we started that way. And when we went online about 15, 16 months after opening the brick and mortar. That changed the game immediately because I was able to reach so many people, more people. And because of my blog, I was able, to make it easy to shop. You could link directly to product. People were always asking, like, how can I buy it from my blog? And so I opened that world up, and that changed the game immediately. It also made it, so much more challenging. There was a whole nother world to learn, like, how are we going to ship these things? Where do we put them? How does this work? We kept growing. We moved a couple, like, years into the first store. We moved to a much bigger warehouse. I had a huge staff. We were just like rocking and rolling, and I learned so much in that like second phase about cash flow and trying to be a boss and to be a leader. Because again, I didn't sign up to run a company. I didn't sign up to figure out worldwide shipping. I loved my blog and I loved sharing. And so it was really hard to make that transition. Like, how can I still do this, be a creative, and also be the head of this company? I've never had, until recently, a partner or anyone with equity in the business. I've always been on my own. And so, the journey involves learning how to do all these things in addition to being the creative. We got almost like too big for my britches before COVID. I had some real challenges with cash flow. When you're selling millions, you're also paying vendors millions. And at some point, like all the money's up in the air. And then when it starts to fall down, does this all work anymore? Christmas, we would spend and spend to have inventory and sell and have a great Christmas. And then the Amex bill would come in January. And I'm like, oh, huh. Like, where did all the money go? And so I started hiring like C-suite type people to help, like CFOs, and just found we were not ready for this kind of volume. Like, I didn't have the infrastructure, I didn't have the team in place, got into a little bit of debt, which I had never had. Furbish had always been profitable, and then got overwhelmed. And before COVID, there was like a couple of dark months where I was like, okay, I had a run of this. It's been awesome. I've done it for a decade and been able to live my life, support my family, do what I love, but this has gotten too hard and I don't see my way out of it. At that point, a new friend came along. His name is Jeff, and he had just moved to North Carolina from New York, and he had just stepped down from a really big job at Diane von Furstenberg. And so he was an international buyer there and had a ton of experience and was just curious. We are a lot alike. We're very interested in the inner workings of a business and also the aesthetics. So he was very into the style of it, but also like wanted to see under the hood. And I kind of let him. More and more he got involved, just seeing what was going on, seeing where my struggles were, what the challenges were, and he was helping me as a friend. He came along right when I was getting ready to maybe close it and was like, "Well, let's try some stuff. Let's try making more Furbish branded items because I only had a few. Let's try to move out of wholesaling other people's product into creating our own. Let's start a wholesale business so we can have another revenue stream." And it was really what I needed and what I was missing as a creative all those years is the executor. He was able to wrangle me, which I had never had a wrangler, and that was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And the timing was such that we were right going into COVID is when I kind of recommitted because our numbers just kept going up and up because we were poised in home decor, which flourished in COVID. We were already an established presence online. We had the infrastructure set up to do it. 2020 was an amazing year for us, which, upped the morale, gave me the motivation to keep trying. Jeff is still with me. He's now an equity partner. And so now I'm able to enjoy the work more and stay committed to it and really stay in my lane and not have to like wear so many hats and learn so many jobs that I'm not suited for.
It's working.
Thanks.
As someone who loves design and interiors and home decor, everywhere I look, your stuff is part of it. I did want to ask about, I mean, obviously the pillows. So fun, first of all. And I want to talk about if that is a little bit of maybe even like your blog voice,
Hmm.
like infusing personality in home decor. Because I think a lot of people, especially I have this like grand millennial audience, which loves tradition,
Hmm.
loves heirloom, loves touches of maximalism. What I think you're doing is like blending all of the above. Needlepoint, they fit in these environments, but they also are just fun. It almost gives people permission to continue to push that traditionalism a little bit.
It's worth mentioning the needlepoint pillows are, a huge majority of our business. We hone in more and more on what our real brand DNA is every year. And we're learning that what you just mentioned, that sort of melding of the traditional with the like irreverence and the provocative, like it's that friction between those two that really are what people are coming to Furbish for now. It's that emotional reaction that you have to the product. We're always the icing on the cake at Furbish. I've wanted to sell the cake, but people just aren't coming to me for cake. They're coming for sprinkles. And I feel like the needlepoint pillows are like the ultimate sprinkle. They're so cool as a product because of what they do online, what they do in ads, what they do on Instagram, and then what they do in real life. They've been able to do so well, I think, because they're almost like a in-person meme. In a world where what catches our eye on social media is these days like a photo with a headline on top of it, right? Like our brain just can't help but stop and read what it says. We're just programmed to. These pillows have always done that. So whether you're looking at a picture on Instagram and it catches your eye and you kind of zoom in to be like, well, what's that say? Or you are seeing it in a store and you just stop and read it because it's just a natural reaction. So one, they get your attention, which I love about them. And two, they make you have, usually you laugh. Like
Hmm.
most people laugh. They find one that makes them laugh. And then the great next step is they make you think about somebody else. If you're very hard pressed to either not say that is so me or that is so somebody else.
Hmm.
So we found that a gifting message is just sort of intrinsic to these because if you see it, you think of your best friend and then you give it to your best friend, it kind of like starts that cycle over for them. They feel seen, they get this really cool gift, then they get to put it in their house and see it every day and giggle when they see it and be like, that's so me. They do a really nice job of what I think we're all trying to do with some of the accents in our home, which is reflect who we are authentically, display things from our life that make us smile. And I think they do a nice job of that. They feel grounded in something traditional. They feel like silly and irreverent. And then oftentimes you get one as a gift. It's a splurge worthy price point where you're like, oh, that's nice. You spent that on me. Pillows are small and they're $100. So you're likely to sort of treasure it because you're like, you thought about me. You were willing to spend this on me. It actually does make me laugh. I feel seen, so I'm going to put it out. And so it's got this magic. The pillows have this magic of like doing all these things, especially in a digital world where you're just trying to get people's attention. Like they're very attention getting in a photo or an ad
Hmm.
or online. They are, I think, my voice. I still come up with probably 95% of them. Definitely like solicit ideas from my friends and people in the company, but in the end, they all run through me. There are a lot of sayings, again, the women in my family said, which are just ridiculous. A lot of Southern sayings. That same voice, people could come to my blog and be like, I get her, I get what she's talking about. I understand what that would sound like if I were sitting there with her. I feel like the pillows do that, which is nice. It's starting to be a fine line to walk between going down like the live, laugh, love route and keeping Furbish's pillows cool. And that's always been a big deal to me is like the cool factor. I want them to stay irreverent and witty and quirky. I don't want them to be cute or whimsical or eccentric. And I feel like we've done a good job of maintaining that, even when they're like borderline sweet.
Well, there's like an edge to them. I personally love the blend of like the unexpected with the traditional. I used to be an event planner, and that was something I always used to talk about incorporating into an event. And interiors can absolutely do that. But I think sometimes if people get so fixated on having a certain aesthetic, sometimes the personality, if you're working with an interior designer, it shouldn't be this way. But I think sometimes your personality can get lost. And I love that it is such a simple way to just like almost like that meme description that you described, where someone could walk by because it works in a space, but you turn your head.
It's like an icebreaker. It kind of
Yeah.
says immediately, like, we don't take things too seriously around here. I feel like for a long time you could sort of get a read on someone by like looking at their bookcase, right? That's a lot though. That takes a lot of curating, that takes a lot of collecting. And these can like almost do that in one little like boop, you know? Like if you walk in a room and you see one little pillow that says something funny, you're like, okay, I see you. That's funny.
Well, I also think because I talk a lot here about opening your home, it is always nice, kind of what you were saying, getting a read on people with like their bookshelf, especially if you don't know someone super well or you're like getting to know someone. I think it almost gives you permission to be like, phew, they have a
Yeah.
sense of humor. I don't know. I feel like if I walked into somebody's home and I was still getting to know them or forging a friendship and I saw something like that, I would instantly feel like, okay, these are my people,
Yeah, I get
you
that. And
know?
I think that's how I lead in life when I'm not like hateful and tired and not wanting to please people. But generally, I will. open up a conversation with like a wisecrack or an aside, some sort of observation about where we are that is funny. And I feel like that immediately, like you said, it puts someone at ease. You're like, okay, we can talk, you're real. And I think the pillows do that. So that's a good point.
It creates authenticity in a way, relatability. Can we talk about color for a second?
Sure.
Because, of course, one of the hallmarks of your brand is that it's very colorful.
Right.
Why did you, I mean, I know you talked early on about that being a hallmark of your early brand, right? Like the pink sofa, flamingos.
Right.
So has that always been something you've been drawn to?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been drawn to color. I was not raised with any sort of like elegance or sophistication. And I value those things. I think they're great, but I was not raised in an environment where those were necessarily valued. Not that the opposite were encouraged, but I feel like to have a refined eye or a refined taste, it's kind of taught, built over time. And like my mother, again, she just went with her gut, and her gut was color, her gut was pattern, her gut was trying new things. Kind of because I think she didn't know any better. I didn't really either. And so, in a way, when there's no rules to break, right? So you kind
Right.
of, and I definitely felt like that as I came into my own as a decorator or a tastemaker or trendsetter. And I feel like a lot of people our age and gray millennials, we sort of learned through magazines and the internet and people we followed and tastemakers, like what was cool and what we
Mhm.
liked. We learned, we educated ourselves. A lot of us didn't grow up with it and we weren't taught it. It was not like a refined palette or taste. We like to incorporate some of these older, more elegant, sophisticated traditional designs because we weren't like bound to them as a philosophy. We were able to incorporate them with big taste, right? Bold patterns, bright colors. And I feel like that's what happened with me. I didn't know what the rules were, so I didn't know I was breaking them. I didn't know that nothing was like holding me back. There were no guardrails. As I read Domino magazine and I was exposed to more designs, I just really appreciated how they encouraged pattern mixing and really, pops of color and things like that. And so I've always been drawn to that. I've always played around with that. I don't like subtle. I don't like gray. And so I've always been drawn to fun colors. They make me happy.
You've talked about the women in your family several times. Does that have any influence?
I think as I get older, I learn more and more how much influence it has on me. I'm an only child, and I grew up with a really tight-knit, pretty small nuclear family. My grandmother, my aunt, and my mom, and my dad. And so these three women, my mom and her sister and their mom, three of them. My grandmother raised them on her own. She was like never let that get the better of her. She was awesome, super creative, always like crafting and quilting and making things and happy. In retrospect, seeing how strong they were has empowered me. I'm in a position where I am a strong woman. Power is important to me in a relationship. I think about it a lot. Like I don't want to give up my power as a woman. And
Mhm.
I think I got that from them. For me, not working, not following my dream, not having my own money, my own wherewithal is giving up power that I need to have as a woman, as a creative. I learned that from them. I'm a mom now too, and thinking about how I want to do that. I have a little boy and how I want to like raise him is learning now as this instinct kicks in that was honed by them, how important it is to like own your space as a woman and as a business owner and the founder of this company. And a lot of people look to me as a leader, and I try to really like take that seriously and own that power and be grateful that I have it.
Well, because we were just talking about influences, could we talk a little bit about, because you are on, it sounds like you very much value like the creative side of your work. So could we talk for a second about things that inspire you or that continue to, because I know you talked about even like just the pillows and like the sayings that go on to those. So what sorts of things are prompting you or inspiring you in your everyday?
Well, I find that I'm in a slump. I just went through such an inspirational period, like from glossy magazines to blogs to home decor websites where that it was just flourishing. Like the content was new. We were getting exposed to so many things. It felt so good. I've always been an active pinner. Like my Pinterest is always like overflowing with new ideas. I've always used Instagram mainly for inspiration. And I'm finding it harder and harder to figure out where to go. It's almost like you don't know how to watch a regular TV show anymore. Like when the Super Bowl comes on, you're like, I don't know even know how to get to it. Like, what do I have to have? Like, what subscription? What channel is it on? Like, for me to go look at Architectural Digest, now I have to pay. It was all out there. It was the Wild West. But we were all just sharing, I think, in the spirit of sharing. We
Yes.
wanted to see things. We wanted eye candy. We wanted to learn. We wanted to get inspired. And I feel like that period has passed. Now it's all like behind a paywall. It's like so convoluted now to access that same inspiration that used to come so freely. I've made this shift where I just used to live online. Like I said, I mean, in my free time, I had my laptop open and I was just like zooming around the internet. It's a very slippery slope to go to social media for inspiration because as try as you might to just be there for like decor, you're going to get sucked into something you weren't there for, right? I would love to hear, like from your listeners and the community, like where are people going these days? Like where do you go for fresh content that makes you inspired, makes you want to like move something around in your house, that makes you want to like act on it and feel a little like happy spike?
I don't think you're alone in that.
One of my huge challenges right now with Furbish is that I come from a social media background where I'm an editor, right? Like I edit and then I want to present to you the edited version. That's what I value, an edited aesthetic, and that is not necessarily it's not valued right now. What's valued is behind the scenes, not what you did, but how did you do it? If I could turn the camera on myself, that overnight it could change our business. I cannot do it. When I mentioned like in the 2000s where that like fork in the road was really apparent, which is you can start a brand or you can be a brand ambassador, right? Like you
Yeah.
can start your own, make it real, make a company. I'm I think that my route was harder, but I'm glad I did it because I think it has longevity. It's real now. Like
Mhm.
it has real value. Whereas if I had become like committed to full time, like I'm an influencer, it wasn't for me. And at 45, I don't know where I would have ended up. To stay current in it, it's almost like while you're in the train wreck, you have to remember to turn the phone on. I know I'm not the girl that turns the phone on when the storm is here.
Well, it goes back to earlier, you're talking about power. I mean, I'm on the same boat with you. Like, I think there is power to privacy. Everyone shares everything. Like, there is no privacy anymore. And you're hitting the nail on the head. I mean, creators on social media in particular are being pushed to be authentic and genuine, and that's all good and well, but there's a confusion. I think people are misinterpreting that as oversharing or having no privacy. And then the public, because that's so commonplace now, the public is almost feeling entitled to your privacy, and it's really hard to maintain that personal boundary.
It's just when you open up, like you're in the hospital room or you're filming you and your husband arguing. It's like you're only doing it seems like you can only be doing it because you need someone to see it.
Yeah, I don't need my problems to be my brand.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's not the goal.
Exactly.
I did want to ask you, kind of talking about branding. Obviously, the kind of tongue-in-cheek become a big part of that. Do you have any favorite phrases or things that took off that continue to make you laugh or things that you love?
Our number one seller has been and still is by far the pillow that says, "Not my circus, not my monkeys." I didn't say that a lot in my life, but I say it more now because it just really like hits.
Hmm.
People understand it, and I feel like some people can relate to it. We just started making a pillow that says, "This is my circus and these are my monkeys." That one's doing equally well. So I think that one, have to mention just because it resonates with so many people. There are ones that make me giggle. I have them in my house. I'm not great at changing them over so much because like once I get them in here, I pick the ones that like are really me and then I'm kind of settled with them. I got one for my son's room that says nobody puts baby in the corner, and that always like makes me laugh because it's just stuck with him for 3 years and it's just funny. And then I have one that says love that journey for you, and that was Alexa from Schitt's Creek.
Schitt's Creek. I love that. Yep.
Like she's so funny to me, and that one just makes me laugh. I can always like hear it in her voice. It's just silly. I have like a test one right now that we just made that says not accepting feedback at this time, which is cute.
That's a good one.
Um, I know, I like
That
that
is
one.
good. That'll do well, I think. That will do well.
I think so too. So I kind of cycle them in and out, but I really like the ones that I value silliness like in life. I like people that are silly. I like things that are silly. And so the sillier the pillow, the more you look at it and you're just like, that is absurd. Those are my favorites.
What do you hope the shopping experience invokes and that you hope the products evoke?
Well, ultimately I hope they buy a pillow. So I hope we get to like check out and submit. But I think that we get there via this interesting route that we talked about earlier, which is it's a nice experience to shop the pillows. To scroll through them and take them all in the first time is fun. At our trade shows, we always display the pillows on a wall. And, at this point, there's like 100 plus. And people really enjoy like walking up to that wall and just reading them, right? Like the experience of it. I feel like kind of what we talked about with inspiration and going online, like you don't get that a lot anymore, where you get to be like, never seen such. Like there's so many of them here. They're all cute. They're all funny. I'm gonna take 5 minutes and just like zone out and read them all and giggle and laugh and talk to my friend and be like, that's so her. And can you believe it says that? It's just a nice experience. And I think you can have that online, you can have that in person with them. And then like honing in on it's really nice when you find something that you want to buy for yourself or for a friend that just like hits so right.
Yeah.
And like, I can't not have that. Like that is so me or that is so her. I feel like that's a nice experience and that's a nice feeling. It like keeps giving. And so I think
Hmm.
that's the cool thing about it. Wherever you put it, you most likely walk by it every day, several times a day. It makes you happy when you have guests, it makes them laugh. You can share it on Instagram and get a laugh. Like it just really delivers on so many levels that I think that's what I want people to experience. Just that whole like the lifespan of them is long and fun. And I think it's hard to find in a product.
Well, then I'll just say that in the show notes, folks will find links. So we'll link to your socials, we'll link to your website, we'll make sure everybody can find everything. But Jamie, I just thank you for taking the time to be here today. This, much like your products, is lots of fun. Thank you for taking the time and sharing with us today.
Sure. Thank you for having me.